Hello, everyone, and welcome to Living the Lifestyle, where we talk about topics around everyday Christian living. I'm your host, Tiffany Ross, and today I am bringing you another podcast discussion that is totally off topic from what we've talked about or what I've talked about in the last 13 episodes. I'm veering off track a little bit when it comes to marriage. I don't know if that is a topic or a discussion in the future. But I know that, and I don't really know, maybe this kind of helps with that area of life. I don't know. But right now, I'm sort of going in a different direction, I feel like. And I think it can be helpful for anyone regarding any situation. Today, I want to have just a frank talk, just talk frankly and transparently about some of the things that the Lord has been showing me and helping me understand in my own personal life as well. And I think many times when we go through things, no matter what it is, whether it's good, bad, ups, downs, whether we're changing seasons, transitioning, whatever it is, there's always someone out there that can receive from you, or that may need some wisdom from you because of what you've experienced going through those seasons or changes. And so that's what I want to do today. I want to just talk about the topic for this, I guess, would be inner awareness. Inner awareness. I believe every single one of us has this kind of inner awareness within us. I say every single one of us, and I think that would be whether we are Christian or not. I say that because every single individual in this world was made in the image and likeness of God. Whether we like that or believe that or whatever, if we look in the book of Genesis, when God was creating everything, he said, "Let us make mankind in our image and in our likeness." And there was no criteria around that. It wasn't let's make mankind that believe in us in our image and in our likeness. It wasn't let's make mankind who are Christians in our image and likeness. It was let us make mankind in our image and likeness. And, talking about this inner awareness piece, we walk through life and we have our actual sight that we can see, and we have our actual minds that we can perceive and understand things. And when we go through life, we're able to actually look at situations, look at circumstances, look at things, look at people, and we're actually able to take what we see with our eyes, use our minds to process what we're seeing, and help us to come to a conclusion about what to do, what decision to make, which direction to go. We're able to do that. But there's another part of us, and I think this is where I'm coming from when I talk about that whole made in the image and likeness of God. There's another part of us, something deep within us. There's an inner part of us, okay, that I'm understanding that can see and hear beyond what we see in front of us and hear naturally. There's an inner part of us that's able to perceive and understand things that we're not actually seeing with our physical eyes. It's able to understand. Sometimes I feel like that's the seat of wisdom. Sometimes I think that's where the seat of wisdom lies, is in that inner awareness. Part of me wonders, is that where the Holy Spirit sits? That inner awareness? Or is it me sitting there? Who's sitting there in that deep place within me that has this knowing that is beyond natural circumstances? It's quite fascinating. Is that my soul? Is that me there in that place deep within me that has a knowing that is beyond what my physical body, that has a knowing that is beyond the physical? What is that, right? So that's kind of where my mind has been, just kind of thinking about these things. And I want to give you a couple of passages that I have been studying over the past couple of days. And it hasn't been an in-depth study. I don't think it needed that. I think it's plain. I think it's plain and clear. And so I want to read these passages to you, and then I'll give you some understanding around that. So where I want to start is in Mark chapter 6. And starting at around 30, you see Jesus fed 5,000 people with 5 loaves and 2 fish. He feeds those people, and then him and the disciples go off on the boat. And I'm paraphrasing this a lot. The best thing you can do to get even more understanding is read these passages for yourself. But Jesus and the disciples, they go off. Jesus sends the disciples off into the boat, and as they go off in the boat, a storm comes. And so I'm going to start here at verse 49. Well, I guess I need to go up a little bit. I'll go to verse 48. And it says, Jesus saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. About the 4th watch of the night, he went out to them, walking on the lake. He was about to pass by them, but when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. They cried out because they all saw him and were terrified. Now, I couldn't help but laugh at this because I got a visual of it. I got a visual of this, right? Like, could you imagine being on this boat? The winds are blowing and you're out in the middle of this water, and someone, I'm sorry. I thought this was hilarious. And someone walks past you on this water, and you know you are on this water, and I am imagining the look on their face. It says when they saw Jesus walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the look in their eyes and the fear in their hearts when they saw this person walking on this water. And it says they cried out because they all saw him and were terrified. And it says immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." Then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down. They were completely amazed, for they had not understood about the loaves. Their hearts were hardened. Now I want you to underline that part. For they had not understood about the loaves. Their hearts were hardened. Now I want to go over to Mark chapter 8. And in Mark chapter 8, Jesus, again, he feeds 4,000 people this time, okay? And he feeds 4,000 people with 7 loaves. Now, we all know he fed these people miraculously and still had so much more left over. Not the point, but we get that, right? And we've heard these passages countless times before. After Jesus feeds these people, Jesus gets into a little altercation with the Pharisees, right? Because they're looking for this sign. They're looking for a miraculous sign to help them from heaven, to help them understand, who Jesus is or whatever. And so Jesus gets into this disagreement with the Pharisees, and then he gets back into the boat with the disciples. And when in verse 13 it says, "Then he left them, got back into the boat, and crossed to the other side." It says the disciples had forgotten to bring bread except for 1 loaf they had with them in the boat. And then Jesus says this. He says, "Be careful," Jesus warned them. "Watch out for the yeast of the Pharisees and that of Herod." In verse 16 it says, the disciples discussed this with one another and said, "It is because we have no bread." Aware of their discussion, Jesus asked them, "Why are you talking about having no bread? Do you still not see or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Do you have eyes but fail to see, and ears but fail to hear? And don't you remember? When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many basketfuls of pieces did you pick up?" They said 12. Jesus says, "And when I broke the 7 loaves for the 4,000, how many basketfuls of pieces did you pick up?" They answered 7. He said to them, "Do you still not understand? Do you still not understand?" Now, this is what I'm talking about. This is kind of what I'm talking about when I talk about this whole inner awareness thing and what we're seeing naturally and things of that nature. You know, it's interesting because the disciples were with Jesus. They saw him feed these people miraculously. They saw it with their natural eyes. They perceived it. They understood what was happening with their mind. They understood that they were feeding people. They understood that Jesus was passing the bread, the food to them, and they were distributing it out to the people. They understood that they were to go and pick up all the extra pieces. They understood these things. They totally saw this, participated in this, and everything. And yet, even in that, did no one ask, how in the world did he stretch 5 loaves and 2 fishes amongst 5,000 people and have all of this left over? You know, did they not understand? Did they not ask themselves, how in the world did he feed 4,000 people with only 7 loaves and still have plenty left over? You know, not once did this inner knowing in them have understanding beyond their mind. You know, it's interesting that even their mind, after seeing this, never once understood. Never once understood. Because if it had, there's no way they would have been in the boat discussing the fact that they left, talking about how they left the bread, forgot the bread except for 1 loaf. If they had understood beyond their natural minds and eyes, they would have understood that it might not have even taken a loaf for Jesus to feed all of them on that boat. That a loaf was more than enough. I mean, he had just literally fed all these people with 5 loaves and 7 loaves. 1 loaf that is small beans to a giant like Jesus, right? But they didn't perceive that. Now, here's the thing that I want you to see in both Mark 6:52 and in 8:17. Jesus says, in 52, for they had not understood about the loaves. Their hearts were hardened. And then in 17, I'll go to 17. He says, do you still not see or understand? Are your hearts hardened? The heart being hardened, you know, what does that mean? Well, how does the heart get hardened? You know, I think sometimes our hearts get hardened towards the Lord when we lack understanding. When you lack understanding about your situation, about your circumstances, about where you are, about where you're going, about where you've come from, about what you're experiencing, when you lack understanding, your hearts will become hard. That's what I'm getting from this, because and in addition to that, you know, a hard heart, I feel like, can be the cause or effect of the lack of understanding. Meaning, because you don't understand, it can cause a hard heart, or having a hard heart can cause you to not understand. Now, when I say understand, let's go back to that inner awareness, because that's what needed to understand what was going on. It's the inner awareness that is hardened. It's the inner awareness that is not seeing. And when Jesus asks, are your hearts hard? In a sense, what he's saying is your inner awareness dull? Is your discernment dull? Are you blind spiritually? Is your inner awareness, that inner part of you that can see beyond the physical, is it blind? Is it blind? Now, take this and look at your own circumstances and ask yourself, is your heart hardened towards the Lord? Are you not understanding what he's saying to you? What he's trying to communicate to you? I look at them in the boat, right? I look at them in the boat in chapter 8:17, and here Jesus was trying to communicate something important to them, and they're distracted by the fact that they had forgotten the bread and only brought one loaf. Because their hearts were hardened, they were missing some key discussions that they could have had with Jesus. They were missing out on this opportunity, right? And they were distracted by something that was minuscule, right? Completely, like nothing. That was nothing. That was the fact that they had left the bread was the least of their worries, considering the fact that Jesus can spread bread from miles, a loaf, right? So that was the least of their worries. The thing that they actually needed to be aware of, they couldn't even understand. It was as if Jesus had not said anything to them. Think about this in your own life. Jesus is trying to explain something to you. He's trying to tell you something very important. He's trying to get you to see something. He's trying to walk you down this road so that you can understand, and so that you can get an idea of where you're going and what he's trying to show you. Something very important he's trying to communicate to you. And you can't even hear him because you're so distracted by these small things in your life that you feel Jesus isn't doing, or that you feel hasn't been done, or that really just has nothing to do with him at all. You're distracted by these little things going on in your life as if he can't handle that too. That's small beans compared to what he's actually trying to convey to you. That means nothing. I think about it like this, like, Jesus is trying to tell you that, it's time for you to relocate. And your heart is so hard, your inner awareness is so blind that you're not able to see that. Yet you're complaining about the fact that, you don't like the car you drive and you want a different type of car. And you're believing God for this different kind of car. But he's trying to tell you, listen, your destiny relies on whether or not you move from this location or not. If you don't move, I'm using this example because I've been there. I've been there where here I was complaining that both of my tenants were moving, that my inner awareness had been blinded, that I didn't understand that what Jesus was trying to tell me is you need to move. Because your well, everything has run dry. Your brook has run dry in this place. And I need you to move so that I can get you to the next part of your destiny in your life. The next phase of your journey. And so I go back here and I'm like, my goodness, what an opportunity they had to understand what Jesus was trying to say so that they can be prepared to not fall into the traps of the Pharisees and of Herod. And they missed it because they were so distracted by the fact that they had only one loaf of bread, not understanding that Jesus can work miracles and spread out that loaf of bread beyond what they can imagine. I mean, come on, come on. The past couple of days, this term, the Lord brought this term up to my mind, and it was Carpe Diem. Carpe Diem. So I saw it once. I can't even remember where I saw it at. And then I saw it again and I thought, Carpe Diem, you hear terms, you see terms, and people may use them and you be like, yeah, you're like, yeah, but you really don't know what they mean. So I said, well, let me look up what this means. And I looked it up, and it was like seize the opportunity. Seize the opportunity. And so I looked further just to make sure that it kind of meant that. I mean, in other words, that's basically what it means, is to seize the opportunity. But last night I was thinking about it, Carpe Diem. And I felt like the Lord was saying, don't miss out on a great opportunity that's set before you. Don't miss out on the opportunity, the window of opportunity that is set before you. They were missing out on a window that was set before them. How do you miss out on these things? Well, see, when your inner awareness is blind, you're easily distracted by just natural things. My My inner awareness these days, you all, has been dull. Here's the thing. Your inner awareness, it'll go through there's a time in your life where your inner awareness can be just on 10. You're picking up, you can see beyond everything, and you understand. You understand what's going on. You have this inner knowing and wisdom and awareness and you are just alive in that way, and you can see clearly. So when you get up every day and you navigate life, you can see so clearly that what's actually going on around you doesn't affect you at all. It's almost like flying high, like an eagle, if you will. Not distracted by the things that's going on the ground, because he can see so far and wide. And that's the thing with this whole inner awareness part of things. It can be so blinded. It can go from knowing to being dull, to where you're picking up some things you're not. And then that's where confusion comes in, and you find yourself a little confused, kind of, it's a conflict between what's going on, the thoughts in your mind, and the posture of your heart. And I don't know if you ever experienced that, but day to day there's this conflict, where once there was peace because you were flowing from that inner awareness in your heart, right? And the posture of your heart was in the right place. And then as it begins to get dull, now there's a little bit of conflict. Now your mind is beginning to come in and sort of reason, or sort of it kind of almost, it hijacks the narrative from you that the Lord is trying to have you to see, because it starts to say, well, wait a minute. Well, how is it that I'm going to get that? Or how is it that I'm going in that place and it looks like this? If you think about like Joseph, right? He knew that he was supposed to rule one day, but how am I supposed to rule one day and I'm in jail? Like that's kind of that area where that inner awareness can become dull because of a lack of understanding. So I'm not saying this is what happened to Joseph, but it's a good way to kind of explain it. Think about it. He's on high spiritually. He knows he's discerned. He's picked it up that he's going to rule. His family is going to submit to him and rule and be under his rulership. And then he gets locked. His brothers put him in the ditch, and then they sell him. And now he's gone from that place. He thought he was going to rule there where he was. And now he's gone to Egypt as a slave. In the process of him going to Egypt as a slave, serving Pharaoh, then getting locked up again, in the process of that, a person's heart can become hardened. Their understanding can become very dull, because now they're seeing some circumstances that come against what they knew in their hearts. And that's where the conflict comes in. So now the inner awareness is becoming dull. Now the heart is becoming hardened. And in that process of the heart becoming hardened, God will keep sending you confirmations and confirmations and confirmations and confirmations. And your heart will begin to get dull, that you'll start dismissing the confirmations. He'll speak to you and try to help you understand and tell you that the promise is still yours, and you won't hear him. You'll hear him, or you'll choose not to receive it. You'll reject it. You won't be able to accept it. And then when you get to that point, just know your heart is hard. When you get to a point where now your heart is totally hard, and you find that you're not hearing the Lord at all. You used to hear him often, but you're not really hearing him. You have no desire to hear any other words. You've heard it all before. You get very cynical, very pessimistic. You just know that your heart is hard. Your inner awareness is blinded at that point. And I think about Joseph. I think about how at some point his inner awareness could have gotten hardened at that point. At that point where he's just flying naturally. It's hard to walk by faith. You won't be able to walk by faith when the inner awareness is blinded. And when it's blinded that way, it's easy to get distracted by small things that don't mean anything. things that Jesus can take care of with the snap of a finger. But they're big mountains in your life, right? You know, these are, you don't have the right shoes, or, I don't, whatever it is, it's small. It's something Jesus can take care of just like that. Yet you're distracted by it, and it's taking a toll on your whole life. It's taking a toll on the way that you see your everyday life. So much so that you can't even see what God is trying to tell you. You can't even understand that he's trying to prepare you, or that he's trying to get you to understand some things, or he's trying to make you aware of some things. You can't even pick that up. And I find that many times this can happen when you've been waiting a long time for something. I can't help but wonder if the hardness of heart, the blindness of that inner awareness, if that is the thing that delays a promise. I mean, I have seen, people go straight to war in the spirit, if you will, for lack of a better term. It's a term that's used. I mean, praying, knocking down demons in the spirit, slaying them, I guess, I don't know, doing all this stuff, okay? Taking these demons down, okay? And the promise is still delayed. They bound up every demonic force, and then another year passes and it's still delayed. They prophesy that it's no longer delayed over their lives, then another year passes and it's still delayed. Sometimes I wonder if the very thing that needs to be prayed away is the hardness of heart. If actually you don't need to labor like that in the spirit, but what you need to do is ask God to remove the stone from around your heart. Ask God to give you a heart of flesh instead of stone. If the real delay is you, what if? What if the true thing that is actually delaying it is the fact that your heart is hardened and you are not able to accept what God is trying to tell you? And since you're not able to accept it, you're not able to fully prepare for it. And if you're not able to fully prepare for it, when it comes your way, if it comes your way, you wouldn't even see it. It would walk right by you. What if? What if? I don't know. I'm trying to. I am not here to tell you that is the reason for any of your perceived woes or whatever. I'm not here to tell you that's the case. What I am here to say is to examine it. Examine you. This is what I'm doing right now for my own sake, is examining myself. Examine the posture of your heart towards God. Do you have this idea that I've heard it all before? And, you're just blinded and he's speaking to you and you're not hearing it. He's giving you clues and you're not picking them up because you can't see, because your inner awareness is dull or blind and you're operating solely on the physical. There's no way that a saint can walk by faith and not by sight when your inner awareness is blind. When your inner awareness is blind, there is no way that you can walk by faith. You will only be walking by sight. That is it. So this is my challenge. This is just a challenge to anyone listening right now that, it's time right now to really pull it together. Do what you need to do. Labor the way you need to labor, whatever it is. For me, to get this hardness from around my own heart, I have to co-labor with my Father. What does that mean? That means He'll help me. He'll help give me that heart of flesh. But I have to take a seat and focus. I have to remove distractions. I have to understand that it's time for me to settle down. And for me, I need to fast. I need to position myself humbly on my knees, metaphorically, on my knees, humble myself before the Lord so that he can take that stone from around my heart and speak to me face to face. That's what needs to happen. And so for me, I know, and I have known that the only way to knock down the stone from around a hardened heart is to humble myself and to fast. To bring my flesh under subjection. To calm it down, to shut it up, to calm down my mind, and to really turn my attention and my focus towards the Word of God, towards Him in prayer, and really just put my own thoughts and ideas aside and tell myself no more thinking right now. You, young lady, need to hear from your Father, because you don't want to miss. You don't want to miss the opportunity that is set before you. You want to take advantage of it. Carpe Diem, right? I think I just changed the name of this podcast to Carpe Diem. Anyway, that's what I have for today. I would say read Mark chapter 6. Go on through chapter 7 and then finish off in chapter 8. Sit down and be real with yourself. Humble yourself and ask yourself what's going on. Do what you need to do to get that hardness from around your heart so that you can break open and see again. So that your inner awareness is enlightened and bright and able to see clearly. Do that for yourself so that you can get back focused and so that you can have that fellowship with your Father, be able to truly walk with Him, and be able to understand what He's saying to you at all times. And just know that I'll be walking with you. Amen. Amen. Have a wonderful day.